Welcome back to XRP Macro, your trusted source for the latest XRP news, Ripple updates, and everything happening across the crypto market. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest developments shaping the future of digital assets, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Today, we have a major story that could have a huge impact on Ripple, XRP, and the entire cryptocurrency industry. While many investors are focused almost entirely on the upcoming Clarity Act, there is another side of the story that deserves just as much attention. Ripple is not sitting back and waiting for lawmakers to decide its future. Instead, the company appears to be accelerating its global expansion, securing regulatory approvals around the world, building institutional partnerships, and preparing for one of its biggest events ever. So let's break down everything happening, what it could mean for XRP holders, and why many analysts believe Ripple may already be positioning itself for the next major phase of adoption. One of the biggest talking points today comes from crypto researcher Crypto Crusader, who believes many investors are missing the larger picture surrounding Ripple's strategy. According to his analysis, while social media is filled with discussions about the Clarity Act and its potential impact on crypto regulation in the United States, Ripple has been quietly building the infrastructure needed for long-term institutional adoption. Instead of putting its plans on hold while Washington debates new legislation, Ripple has continued expanding across international markets where regulatory frameworks are already becoming more established. This strategy suggests the company is thinking beyond short-term headlines and focusing on creating a global financial network that can continue growing regardless of temporary political delays. For many XRP supporters, this is exactly the type of long-term planning they have hoped to see from Ripple. According to the latest reports, Ripple now holds more than 75 regulatory licenses and registrations around the world. That number alone highlights how aggressively the company has pursued compliance in multiple jurisdictions. These licenses cover operations across Europe, Japan, Australia, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, Singapore, Africa, and the United States. Rather than relying on one single market, Ripple has built relationships across numerous financial regions, allowing it to expand payment services while staying within local regulatory requirements. This growing global footprint gives Ripple an advantage that many blockchain companies are still working to achieve. As regulators continue introducing clearer rules for digital assets, Ripple appears determined to be one of the companies already prepared to operate within those legal frameworks. Crypto Crusader believes this global strategy is setting the stage for something much larger than many investors realize. In his view, Ripple is planting the seeds for institutional adoption before regulatory clarity fully arrives in the United States. Instead of waiting for a perfect legal environment, the company is establishing partnerships, obtaining approvals, and strengthening its infrastructure so that once additional regulations are finalized, it can move quickly. This approach reflects a business that is preparing for the future instead of reacting to it. For supporters of XRP, the idea is simple. By the time new legislation becomes effective, Ripple may already have much of the necessary infrastructure in place, allowing financial institutions to integrate its technology more efficiently than competitors who delayed their expansion plans. Another major announcement, adding excitement to the Ripple ecosystem, is the confirmation that Ripple Swell 2026 and the XRPL Apex Developer Summit will be held together in New York from October 27th through October 29th. This combined event is expected to become one of the largest gatherings in Ripple's history. Industry experts expect leading banks, payment providers, fintech companies, blockchain developers, institutional investors, and technology innovators to attend. Bringing both conferences together creates an opportunity for collaboration across multiple sectors of the financial industry. Investors will be paying close attention for potential partnership announcements, technology demonstrations, ecosystem updates, and discussions about how blockchain solutions can be integrated into mainstream financial services. Events like these often generate significant interest because they provide companies with a platform to reveal new products and strategic initiatives. Many analysts believe Ripple Swell and XRPL Apex could become important milestones for XRP adoption. Whenever major financial institutions gather with blockchain developers, the possibility of new collaborations naturally increases. Ripple has consistently focused on providing enterprise-grade payment solutions, rather than simply targeting retail users. If additional banks or payment companies announce integrations during the event, it could strengthen confidence that Ripple's technology continues gaining traction among institutional clients. While no partnership announcements are guaranteed, expectations remain high because Ripple has historically used Swell conferences to showcase new developments and strengthen relationships across the financial sector. Investors will certainly be watching every presentation, keynote speech, and product announcement for clues about Ripple's future direction. Of course, the Clarity Act remains one of the most closely watched legislative developments for the cryptocurrency industry. The proposed bill is designed to establish clearer definitions regarding which digital assets qualify as securities and which fall under different regulatory categories. For years, uncertainty surrounding these classifications has created challenges for blockchain companies operating within the United States. Many businesses have argued that the lack of consistent rules discourages innovation and creates unnecessary legal risks. Supporters of the Clarity Act believe the legislation could finally provide the certainty that both crypto companies and institutional investors have been requesting for years, potentially opening the door for broader participation in digital asset markets. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse has recently emphasized an important distinction regarding XRP itself. According to Garlinghouse, XRP already achieved legal clarity following Ripple's courtroom victories against the SEC. However, he also explained that while XRP may have greater certainty than many other digital assets, the broader cryptocurrency industry still lacks a comprehensive regulatory framework. In his view, legislation such as the Clarity Act would help establish clearer guidelines for numerous blockchain projects that continue operating under uncertainty. This distinction matters because Ripple's leadership believes the industry as a whole benefits when regulators provide transparent rules instead of relying on enforcement actions to shape policy. Crypto Crusader shares a similarly optimistic perspective. He argues that once comprehensive regulatory clarity is established, there may be very little standing in the way of broader Ripple adoption. According to his comments, the infrastructure is already regulated, approved, and prepared for institutional-grade expansion. From this viewpoint, Ripple has spent years laying the foundation, while many observers focused only on legal battles. If future legislation removes remaining uncertainty for financial institutions, those existing partnerships and regulatory approvals could become increasingly valuable. While no one can predict exactly how quickly adoption may accelerate, supporters believe Ripple's preparation could allow it to respond much faster than companies that delayed building their compliance infrastructure. Attention is now shifting toward the next important political milestone. The United States Senate is currently in recess until July 13th, while lawmakers continue working on revisions to the proposed legislation. Current expectations suggest that a Senate vote could take place later in July, or possibly during early August. However, the legislative process remains complicated. The bill would require 60 votes to advance, meaning bipartisan support is essential. Reports indicate that support from at least 7 Democratic senators may be necessary for the legislation to move forward successfully. As always with major legislation, timelines can change, negotiations can continue, and investors should recognize that political developments often remain unpredictable until final votes actually occur. Timing also matters because lawmakers face another important deadline later this year. If Congress does not complete work on the legislation before the August recess, additional delays could potentially push final consideration into next year. That possibility has investors watching every update coming from Washington. Regulatory certainty has remained one of the biggest themes affecting cryptocurrency markets over the past several years, so any progress toward clearer legislation naturally attracts significant attention. Even if delays occur, Ripple's ongoing international expansion demonstrates that the company is not relying exclusively on U.S. legislation to continue growing its business. Instead, it continues pursuing opportunities across global markets while domestic regulatory discussions continue. Looking at the market itself, XRP is currently trading around $1.04 after experiencing weakness over the past week. The token has declined approximately 6% during that period and remains well below its all-time high reached several years ago. Like much of the cryptocurrency market, XRP has faced pressure from broader macroeconomic conditions, cautious investor sentiment, and ongoing uncertainty surrounding monetary policy. Price fluctuations remain common across digital assets, especially during periods when investors are waiting for major regulatory or economic developments. Despite short-term volatility, many long-term holders continue focusing on Ripple's business expansion rather than daily price movements. The broader cryptocurrency market has also experienced significant pressure recently. Bitcoin has struggled to maintain higher price levels as continued ETF outflows and weakening technical momentum weigh on sentiment. Ethereum has also traded under pressure, reflecting ongoing institutional caution and reduced risk appetite. XRP has not been immune to these broader market trends. At the same time, macroeconomic conditions continue influencing investor behavior across financial markets. The Federal Reserve has maintained a relatively hawkish tone regarding interest rates, emphasizing its commitment to controlling inflation. Higher interest rates generally reduce demand for risk assets, including cryptocurrencies, making it more difficult for digital assets to sustain strong upward momentum, even when positive company-specific news emerges. Recent reports also indicate continued outflows from Bitcoin spot exchange-traded funds, reflecting cautious institutional positioning. As capital leaves major crypto investment products, overall market liquidity can weaken, placing additional pressure on asset prices across the sector. Investors are balancing optimism surrounding long-term blockchain adoption against concerns about interest rates, economic uncertainty, and global financial conditions. These competing forces help explain why positive Ripple developments have not immediately translated into stronger XRP price performance. Markets often require both favorable company news and supportive macroeconomic conditions before sustained rallies begin. Despite these short-term challenges, many XRP supporters believe Ripple's expanding regulatory footprint may ultimately prove more important than temporary market volatility. Securing over 75 licenses, building relationships across multiple continents, and preparing major industry events all demonstrate continued execution, regardless of market conditions. Rather than measuring success solely through daily price charts, long-term investors often evaluate whether the underlying business continues progressing toward wider adoption. From that perspective, Ripple appears committed to strengthening the infrastructure required for institutional payments, cross-border transactions, and blockchain-based financial services that could play a larger role in the global economy over the coming years. As always, it is important to remember that while many analysts remain optimistic about Ripple's long-term outlook, the cryptocurrency market carries substantial risk and uncertainty. Regulatory decisions, economic conditions, investor sentiment, and technological developments can all influence XRP's future performance. Nothing discussed in today's video should be considered financial or investment advice. Always conduct your own research, evaluate multiple sources of information, and make investment decisions based on your own